East Asia after the coming collapse of Russia. Since the late Tokugawa shogunate era, in the early 19th century, the greatest threat to modern Japan has been Russia. As a result, war finally broke out between Japan and Russia in the beginning of 20th century, 1904. Fortunately, we won at that time. Now that Russia has transitioned from an authoritarian system to totalitarianism and even started a war of aggression, the greatest threat to Japan and East Asia has returned. But what if Ukraine wins against Russia and our cooperation causes Russia to collapse? Let's try simulating it. First, the peoples of Siberia and other countries ruled by the Russian Empire would be able to become independent due to the right to self-determination. Karafuto and Chishima Islands, which have been illegally occupied by Russia, will also be returned to Japan. The circumstances of East Asia will change drastically. It's North and East Asia spring. With the Russian threat eliminated, Japan no longer needs to worry about the security of her northern border. And the emerging nations of Northeast Asia, which desire freedom and prosperity, can be supported by the United States, Europe, and Japan, which is Asia's only responsible developed nation. It will take time for free economics and democracy to take root in these countries. However, if we succeed in this, we will be able to bring a spring of prosperity to the region, not only through political growth, but also through economic growth. Japan already has a wealth of experience in bringing prosperity to countries such as Taiwan, Korea, or Manchuria. What happens next? It will be the shake-up of North Korea's dictatorial system and the spring spread to the oppressed ethnic group in China. Russia's collapse means that the Chinese Communist Party's totalitarian regime loses its largest and most powerful ally. In the best-case scenario, the so-called People's Republic of China will suffer a similar fate to its twin sister, the so-called Russian Federation. Hope will come to Tibetans, Uyghurs, Manchus, and Mongolians, and other oppressed peoples. These peoples have the potential to become like the nations that will succeed in Northeast Asia. And Taiwan will be freed from the Chinese grip. If that happens, North Korea, having lost two major pillars of support, will also face the prospect of collapse. South Korea may be able to look after the North Korean people, just as West Germany used to unify East Germany and still taking care of it. And this impact extends not only to land, but also to the ocean. In other words, it is the collapse of string of pearls and one belt, one road by the current Chinese Empire. This signifies the completion of the free and open Indo-Pacific, which is strongly supported by the US, Australia, India, and Japan Quad, and the countries that support it. And it will be the beginning of a new and real one belt, one road of freedom. However, I would like to draw your attention to an important point here. This is about nuclear weapons in the region after the collapse of Moscow, Beijing, and Pyongyang. What I am reminded of is the failure of nuclear control after the collapse of the Soviet Union. I think it was really necessary to take away her nuclear weapons and denuclearize the entire region with the collapse of the Soviet Union. We certainly tried very hard to prevent Soviet nuclear technology from falling into the hand of other countries and terrorists. But I think we should have been more proactive in eliminating the very nuclear weapons that threaten free countries. I think the retribution for not doing so is what is happening in Ukraine now. Therefore, we should take this opportunity to pay close attention to the denuclearization of the upcoming New Russia and New China. Otherwise, history will just repeat itself. To this end, it is necessary to consider in advance specific processes and programs such as their nuclear abandonment and subsequent strict nuclear inspections. I believe that the nuclear abandonment process that took place in Ukraine and the strict nuclear inspections of Japan to date can serve as precedents. This is a message of me and a message from Japan. From now, as an appendix to this speech, I would like to send the following heartfelt messages to you from two locations in Japan. This is a museum of Tsuruga City in Fukui Prefecture, Japan. And there is a good port that has prospered for trade and commerce with the continent since ancient times. Twice in modern times, this port had served as a port of humanity. In the early 1920s, as the Russian Revolution raged on, Polish orphans who lost their parents or were taken away were left behind in the Far East. Polish authorities had appealed to the international community, but the government was still weak and had no way to rescue them. But Japan raised her voice to save and accept orphans. The Japanese government, through the Japanese Red Cross Society, paved the way for the orphans and finally set sail from Vladivostok to Tsuruga port, rescuing a total of 763 Polish orphans. Almost all the children were starving or sick and were in poor health. But Tsuruga citizens warmly welcomed them, cured them of their illnesses and hunger, made them healthy, and then sent them back to their newly re-independent homeland. Among other factors, this is why Poland and Japan are on such good terms today. The second time was from the late 1930s. Japan, which did not adopt a racist policy. In fact, Japan opposed this policy in the League of Nations and was free from anti-Semitism, accepted Jewish exiles mainly through two routes. One was the Japanese Army's Inuzuka route. It was an escape route led by General Kiichiro Higuchi, endorsed by General Hideki Tojo, who became a prime minister lately, and carried out by Koreshige Inuzuka, the head of the Special Intelligence Team. The other route was the Sugihara route of the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Senpo Sugihara was the acting consul general of the Japanese consulate in Kaunas, Lithuania capital at the time, and issued visas for life to 6,000 Jews who fled to safety. It is estimated that over 20,000 Jews were saved through these two routes. It was Tsuruga port that welcomed them from Vladivostok, just like the Polish orphans before them. As this history shows, Japan is ready to extend a humanitarian hand to peoples suffering from oppression on the continent. Although there are times when it is beyond our power, I sincerely hope that you all have hope. This is Kishitsu Shrine in Shiga Prefecture, Japan. In ancient times, there was a country called Kudara, known as Pekche in Korea, in the southwestern part of the Korean peninsula. It was a long-time friend and ally of Japan, but in 660 AD, it was attacked by the Tang Empire and Shiragi country, known as Shitla in Korea, and was destroyed. However, in Japan, the Prince of Kudara, Hosho, was held as a hostage. Kishitsu Fukushi, a surviving vassal of Kudara, conveyed to Japan that he wished to enshrine Hosho as the king of Kudara and restore Kudara. And in addition to returning the prince, he requested that Japan send reinforcements. In 663, after sending Hosho to Kishitsu Fukushi, Japan sent a total of 50,000 army and navy troops to the Korean Peninsula to fight for the restoration of Kudara. Unfortunately, Kishitsu Fukushin was murdered by the new King Hosho due to internal conflict. The operation failed. The Japanese army and navy were defeated by the Tan and Shiragi combined forces, and King Hosho went into exile. However, many exiled Kudara people fled to Japan and settled in this area of Omi, now Shiga Prefecture. And those with knowledge and skills worked hard for the development of Japan. Surprisingly, this shrine is the graveyard of Kishitsu Shushi, who is said to be the younger brother or the son of Kishitsu Fukushin, a surviving retainer of Kudara and the leader of restoration movement. As this history shows, Japan is an ally of peoples who aspire to independence from ancient times to today.